What's up, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Wizards Latest. I'm your host, Ben Robertson, and on this page, we break down all the biggest headlines and rumors surrounding the Washington Wizards. So make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to drop your comments as well. I appreciate all the support here on the road to 1K. I thank those of you who are consistently down in that comment section. Today, I want to talk more Wizards preseason basketball coming up. Then we'll discuss some trade rumors from around the NBA, what missing the preseason means for Bilal Coulibaly, and lastly, now former Wizard Malcolm Brogdon has retired. Again, guys, thanks for all the support here on the page. And jumping in today, the Wizards' final preseason game is tonight against the Detroit Pistons. This is a Thursday edition of Wizards Latest, which means we are less than 1 week away from regular season basketball in the NBA. Going to start to dive into some season predictions for the team, I think, next week, getting ready for opening night. But I'm not really sure who we're going to see here this evening in this final preseason matchup. Remember, 3 of the 5 starters from game 1 didn't play in game 2. Sarr, Middleton, McCollum were all out against the Knicks, so not exactly sure how things are going to look in terms of the lineup here this evening. But regardless, a chance for Washington to close out the preseason with a winning record, which for this young core, I think would be an exciting thing. But moving on today, I want to dive into, like I said, some rumors from around the league because something is brewing out in Portland. Remember, they've picked big men in the first round in the last 2 NBA drafts. Donovan Clingan out of UConn a couple of years ago, just finished his rookie year, now going into year 2. And then Young Hansen, who was in the CBA the last 2 years, was the first round pick this past season for Portland. Usually, when you draft a player at the same position 2 years in a row, you're probably not sold on the first guy that you selected. And I wonder if that's maybe the case here in Portland. However, Clingan going into the year is going to be the starting center. Hansen looked at least right now, as a little bit more of a developmental player, and Clingan has impressed in preseason. First couple games were a little bit slow scoring-wise for him, but he was still an effective rebounder. And then their last outing, he had 15 points, 11 boards. His conditioning and cardio is reportedly way up, and they're excited about Clingan going now into year 2, but the question is, if they want to make way for Young Hansen, does Clingan end up kind of on the outside looking in there in Portland? And I realize these are 2 completely different players. Hansen thought of as more of an on-the-ground, really skilled, good passing big man, already sort of getting those Jokic comparisons, while Clingan is a big, physical center, really good around the rim at both ends, averaged more than a block and a half and just about 20 minutes per night as a rookie, also about 6.5 boards, 6.5 points, I should say, 8 rebounds a game, and again, in 20 minutes a night as a rookie, and looking good in preseason. It's raising the question around the league again. Could Portland be interested in maybe moving on from Donovan Clingan, given their selection of Young Hansen this past year, and maybe wanting to open up more playing time for him? And if that's the case, I certainly would be interested in Will Dawkins making a call here. I'm not saying he has to go all in on Donovan Clingan, but we have talked about the possibility of a 2 big lineup here in DC, pairing another either 4 or 5 man, regardless of kind of depending on what you think of Sarr. Obviously, here it would be a traditional center with him. We've talked about that possibility a whole bunch here in DC, and you wonder if, again, if Clingan goes on the market at some point during the year, if Will Dawkins wants to make that call. So moving on just a little bit and sort of continuing to discuss Wizards players, but also some rumors in the rumor mill from around the league. I've seen it thrown out by Wizards on SI, that website, that Bilal Coulibaly might be on the outside looking in the rotation here in DC. And remember, missing the preseason, missing the start of probably the first few games of the regular season is Bilal. And you wonder if Keyshawn George, Cam Whitmore have sort of maybe supplanted him in the lineup. We've also seen Will Riley play pretty well himself here in the preseason action. And the Wizards have a stockpile of these young wings, kind of similar size and frame type players, that they're sort of wondering who's going to separate themselves and really take control of the depth chart at those positions. And my question here is, if Bilal Coulibaly becomes the odd man out, if he's, it does, another question maybe I'll throw out is, when Bilal returns and gets back to being fully healthy, does he immediately get slotted back into the starting lineup? I think that will tell you a lot about really what I'm asking. The first question I'm asking there, which is, if he maybe doesn't fit in the way we thought he might have before, does he end up being the young piece that gets traded out of DC? And I realize that is a thought that a lot of us hesitate at. I love Bilal. I love a lot of these young guys. It's just been fun to watch their development. I'm excited to continue to do it. But at the end of the day, if the Wizards want to make that splash move that we have talked about on the page either during the year or next offseason, it's probably going to come at the price of one of those young core pieces. And you're just going to have to take your pick of who is most valuable to you and who you're not willing to, give away. I'm not saying it has to be Bilal Coulibaly. Again, I love a lot about his game and love sort of the way it seems like he continues to get more comfortable here in DC as well. But again, could be, as I kind of keep saying, the guy that's on the outside looking in of a young core that is building. Last thing I want to chat about here today is Malcolm Brogdon. Of course, now the former Wizard, former Rookie of the Year, and Sixth Man of the Year in the league, has retired from the NBA. Of course, we just saw him a couple nights ago in that Knicks preseason game. The UVA product just kind of cited injuries. He said, just getting sick of dealing with just injury problem after, injury after injury. We saw that with him last year here with the Wizards and just kind of got tired of it. It's one of those things that goes, man, really? Malcolm Brogdon is retiring? You remember him playing in college. You sort of remember his time at UVA, and you can't believe his career is already wrapping up. Salute to him. Obviously wasn't a long-time Wizard, but reportedly from everybody in the organization, was a pleasure to be around when he was with the team. Picked up by the Knicks, I believe, going into this preseason, and again, deciding to retire before the NBA regular season gets started. Remember, less than a week away from opening night in the NBA. We're going to have season predictions for you, discussing the Wizards coming up next week. Make sure you've hit those like and subscribe buttons. Guys, I thank you for tuning in to the page, and I thank you for tuning in to another episode of Wizards Latest.